All right, so let's get started. Thank you all for being here. Have a great lunch and learn session today. The development team is going to be discussing individual giving. So Alexis Williams, our Chief Development Officer, Rachel Minarchik, our National Director of Philanthropy, and Lily Hannigan, our National Development Manager, have assembled a really great presentation around individual giving. So we are now recording. I am going to turn it over to Rachel to kick us off. So Rachel, you are up.
Thanks, Kyle. Appreciate it. And thank you everyone for taking time during your lunch to join us. Welcome. I don't feel like it's an SBP meeting unless there's a Mike Sullivan fist pump. So I'm just going to kick it off with that first and do a little let's go. But now that I feel like we've got it, let's do it. I'm really excited to talk to everyone today about individual giving. Individual giving, I'll dive right in, is about marketing. It is about revenue targets, just like any stream of fundraising. But above all, it's about building a relationship between our supporters and SBP. So we're connecting them more deeply to our mission of shrinking the time between disaster and recovery. We're building their trust in our ability to execute on that mission. And we're showing them how slowly over time, even when we build that relationship, we're showing them how we align with the impact that they want to see in the world. Next one, Lily. So individual giving tends to be one of the most valuable types of revenue for any organization because it also happens to be the most flexible. Whereas you have corporate and foundation funding that a corporation or foundation might have very specific goals and thus, or very specific geographies or programs, or want to fund one part of disaster recovery because they are their own entity. It makes perfect sense. A lot of our individual donors generally give to the organization, to SBP. They're here for the whole package. And even if they do restrict the gift, it's usually to a certain response. And they're very flexible in that support to the response. Like even when you go on the website, you can see there's always an option for where most needed. That's what that means. And most people choose it, even when they're giving to, Hurricane Ian response. So we're really grateful for the trust that those folks are putting in us. And that is part of what guides the way that we interact with those donors. So it's very much about people and connections with those people. And one thing, I was going to highlight that. So sometimes we wanted to highlight the volunteer experience here because, as I said, it's all about people, right? And I can't tell you how many people have either attended one of our events or volunteered. The number one thing that they talk about what they're impressed with, aside from, of course, the impact that they're seeing on our clients and in the world and in disaster recovery, is the passion and the dedication of our staff, our AmeriCorps, all of you who are on this call. So sometimes we think about donors and volunteers as separate, but they really aren't. We did some quick math when I started, which was more than a year ago, and noticed that a third of the people who donate to SBP have had a volunteer experience with us. So it's not just that they're building someone's home, they're also building a relationship with all of you who are making this work happen and driving impact for people who need it at a really critical point in their lives. And that leaves an indelible mark on them. They don't forget. I've seen timelines where someone volunteered 5 years ago, and then all of a sudden they do pop up and make a donation. So I really want to drive that home, how much everything you're doing in any moment truly matters, both for the people we're serving and for the people who are coming back to us to support that work. So thank you for that. Next one, Lily. Okay, so we also are going to do just a quick, what is it? What is it that you fundraisers do with these individual donors? And there is a little, this is a little bit of the science of it. And there's a bit of a cycle that we think of when we are working with a given individual donor, particularly when we're thinking about someone comes to us giving at a certain level, and our goal is to build rapport and trust with them and move them slowly up, whether that means renewing them regularly or becoming a monthly donor, or discovering if they have capacity and engaging them in a way that inspires them to up their giving, make SBP not in the middle of their giving, but what if we could be number one? What if they're giving $50,000 to a very similar organization to SBP? Well, we should get $50,000 too. So we think about these areas. One is acquisition and identification. So that's when we're first getting to know someone. It doesn't mean they've even made a gift. They may have attended an event. They may have volunteered with us, and we're already researching that person to understand their background and where else they may have given, and what their interests are, and getting to know as much as we can. And we do that with tools. We're not just doing that by hand. We have a tool called Donor Search that helps us do that. So once we've identified someone, whether they raise their hand and they make a gift, or we see that there's capacity and they've interacted with SBP, so we know there's interest, you can begin to cultivate the person. So what that means is, this is what I'm talking about when I say building a relationship. Whatever we do know about them, we can use that in a way that we communicate with them. Part of it is a little bit generic. We want to tell them what we're working on via email, via letters, via social media. That's one part. We know they want to know what we're up to. At the same time, when somebody has capacity, we might spend a little more time and say, well, maybe this person volunteered and they really connected with a certain staff member, or they wanted to know more about this area of our work. They're giving at a pretty high level. We might set up a meeting with them so they can learn more about that work. It might be a place they want to, that they learn about, and then they become inspired to invest more. So cultivation is about sharing more information and really letting the donor lead. What do we know about this person? How can we connect that back to what we're doing in SBP? It could be just sharing photos from when they volunteered. It could be introducing them to the right staff person that they might connect with really well, or already have connected with. There's a whole different variety of ways that we can do that. But it's really like what we're trying to get to know at the end of the day. My goal whenever I talk to a donor is, who is this person and what matters to them? Like, what impact are they trying to have on the world? What inspired them to give to SVP? What is meaningful to them? And that lets us understand how we can engage them going forward, and what tools we can use to do that. And then, yes, there is asking for money. That's solicitation. So it's not as frequent as you might think, because you can see it surrounded by all these other areas of our work. And a lot of times, sometimes when we're doing the first two pretty well, donors are inspired, and I've definitely done a meeting without even asking for money, and the donor increases their gift. I prefer to actually give a number, because maybe it's even higher than what they increase their gift to. But still, it's definitely a conversation. The higher you get up in someone's giving, it really truly is a conversation. And as we think about mid-level or mass market giving, we're sending solicitations with very clear ask amounts in letters and in email, and being sure that that might look frequent, and that's on purpose. That's where the marketing comes in, where someone needs to see something 7 or 10 times maybe to do something about it. Everybody gets a lot of email and a lot of mail. So we want to ring the doorbell as many places as we can, on social media, over here in their inbox, over here in their mailbox, not too much, just the right amount, but so that when they come across that SBP envelope and they're thinking about making their charitable decisions, we've got something in front of them. So part of the solicitation is marketing, and at higher levels of giving, it is about meetings and relationship building and understanding how we can inspire transformational large-scale gifts. Stewardship is really close to cultivation. Now that someone's given, we want to be sure that we thank them promptly in a timely way, and that if they've given something and they have restricted the gift in any way, we report back to them. So say they gave to Hurricane Ida, everybody at SBP every donor to SBP who made a gift to Hurricane Ida received a 12-month impact report. Some donors received that by mail, who gave really significant gifts, and they had a handwritten note from us saying, thank you so much. Do you have questions? Would you like a call? Every single donor, from $10 on up, though, did receive that report, whether by email with a link or through the mail. So that's one example of how we can immediately, in the short term, thank a donor, and then in the long term, be sure we're showing that we're trustworthy by reporting back on the impact that they've had through their donation. So those are our 4 main areas of what are these individual fundraisers doing. So when you see us hosting events, that would be something usually called cultivation. Like, that's why we're doing this. We want people to have a chance to interact and get to know the organization. And we might make an ask in an event, but we might not. We might just want the chance, like at the open house, for example, for people to be able to get to know our work a little bit better, what it looks like on the inside of SBP, and who all of you wonderful people are who are doing this work. I think that's it. Did I cover it? I think so. But of course, we are going to have Q&A. So if you have questions, you can ask those soon. And next up, I'm very excited to introduce you to some new team members, and particularly excited to introduce you to Alexis Williams, who is our new Chief Development Officer here at SBP. We're so excited to have her and her expertise and guidance on our team. Alexis, I'm going to hand it to you.
Thanks so much, Rachel. Hi, everybody. I hope your lunches are going well as you learn a little bit about us. Quick raise of hands. Does anyone else hate seeing their picture on presentations as much as I do? Because man, that is just fun. So we can pass through this slide quickly, but I do want to highlight 2 other members of the team. Carly is out today, but Megan is also on the call today. And so the 3 of us are the new faces on the team, and are really excited to bring a variety of different experience and viewpoints to an already wonderful group of folks, really leading the charge and getting all of that cash money for all of us to be able to go and do the work that we love and support the clients that we care so deeply about. One of the things that I wanted to talk to you all about today, as we move through some of the different topics in today's discussion, is about what does it mean to build a culture of philanthropy. And you may be saying, I'm not a philanthropist. I'm not on your team. I'm not a fundraiser. That's not part of my job. But what is really amazing about the work that we do in development and about the work that everyone does at SBP is that it is client-centric. And being client-centric in that approach of our work means developing a culture in which collaboration is fundamental to our process, where we are strengthened by each other in building out broader coalitions of impact. And so when I think about culture of philanthropy, it's not just development trying to pass the buck to raise some fundraising dollars. What I'm talking about is how can everyone be able to have co-ownership of the brand of SBP and the impact of SBP? And what does that look like to be empowered going into your work on the day-to-day basis and say, I am an advocate and ambassador for this mission and for the folks who we are preparing and protecting and shielding from the impacts of disasters across the country. And so with that, one of the things that I wanted to kind of dig into is part of this piece about why development is more than just asking for money. And part of that is such a piece that's core to the work that everyone does, and it is people-centric. You'll see this on the bullets where we have all the different things from storytelling to how people are motivated. But at the end of the day, one thing that maybe we could center on is that we all have dreams. There are reasons why we get up day to day and do the things that we do. We have dreams for ourselves. For those of you who have children, you have dreams for them. We have dreams for our country, et cetera. And so being able to tap into the core motivations of why we do the things that we do, what drives us to be better people each day, that's kind of where we see the intersections of impact and evolution and coalition building, and why development is a part of kind of everyone's job as a broader ambassador and co-creator in this kind of impact work that we're doing here at SBP. And so when we look at how we then form relationships in your day-to-day work, there are a variety of impact areas where you can then create really kind of watershed moments for the organization, whether it's connecting with a volunteer that then becomes a donor, or connecting with someone on the ground at local government that then becomes more aware of what we're doing in our work and is able to create pathways for impact and broader investment and awareness opportunities for the organization. And so I want to say this in a way that encourages and not overwhelms everyone, in that we all have our roles to play in this broader impact, but there's something about it that is accessible for everyone. And if there's any, we'll have time for Q&A later, but really want to just encourage everyone to ask questions and be curious, because there's something in this kind of secret sauce of SBP that allows us all to be empowered in this work, and development is a piece where everyone can kind of play ball. So I'm going to stop there, because I could talk about donor motivations and all of that stuff, but you guys didn't come here for that. You came here for all of the wonderful stuff that the rest of the team has so expertly put together. But please know that my virtual door is always open. Please find time on my calendar, and the rest of the team is happy and willing to talk to you about individual investment, obviously corporate and foundation investment as well. And just thank you all for all of the work that you do that allows us to be able to go out there and get those dollars. So thank you.
Thanks, Alexis.
Great. Thank you so much, Alexis. That was beautiful. It's funny, I realized the last slide says development is more than asking for money. I'm about to talk about how we're about to be asking for money. So we're in Q4, so we're approaching the end of the year. And in the individual giving world, that is a big time for people to make their gifts. It's kind of a deadline, to make your gifts to claim on your taxes next year. So a lot of people kind of wait until this time of year to give their gifts. So to maximize that potential, we run our largest individual giving campaign of the year, which is called Home for the Holidays. And we touched on this briefly at the last staff meeting, but just to give a little bit more context, it is a year-end individual giving campaign where we essentially try to raise money from everyone, whether it's, $5, $10 social media donors through tens of thousands of dollar major individual donors. And of course, each audience has a different approach, and that's where the expertise of the team comes in, and segmenting out donors and having strategies based on their capacity to give, their interest in SBP, and what motivates them to support this mission. And this campaign, it's for unrestricted dollars, like Rachel talked about in the beginning, but to kind of share or to kind of motivate donors, we highlight stories about families who our teams are supporting across our operating sites. And this year, we just sent out our first fundraising appeal letter, and we had 2 letters this year. We focused on the Bill and Sophia Roach in Florida, who our disaster corps team helped, and they're in the top photo. It's a beautiful, candid moment when they were hugging our team members to thank them for their support. And then on the bottom photo on the right is Miss Jeanette, who is in Homa, and our team is helping her rebuild after being displaced for a year from Ida. So this is an example of how we're tailoring messaging to people based on audience and inclination. We are segmenting out people who supported Ida last year, which was a really large fundraising response, and tailoring the messaging to them, because some people might be more interested in supporting Ida or supporting Southeast Louisiana than SBP National, as an example. So we just like to make sure that we have an awareness of what people like, what they want their impact to be on the world, and focus on that. And then our goal is to raise at least $900,000 from 1,000 gifts. So it's an ambitious goal. And like Alexis was saying, this is truly a team effort. And we can't raise this money unless we have really incredible stories, really incredible impact, and really incredible ambassadors. And that's where I really thank everyone on this call for also making the time to be here and learn about this, and for doing such amazing work that we can highlight with our donors. We do have a kind of a fun activity that would love to get some volunteers from this call to help with. One of the things that we like to do this time of year is to remind people of their past support and their past impact, to encourage them to continue support. So it's not necessarily asking for money, it's kind of giving the warm and fuzzy feelings about their support of SBP made a big impact. So I am going to kick it back to Rachel, who's going to talk a little bit about a thankathon opportunity that we have coming up.
Yes, thank you, Lily. So as Lily said, we would love your help. And I will give you a sense of what do we mean by thankathon. And I'll tell you this, it's really easy. It's really fun. And I think a lot of people come away from it surprised by a conversation that they had. So when we talk about a time commitment, we would love 30 minutes of your time, 1 hour of your time. We can give you a list of people who gave to SBP last year. And essentially you'll call through that list with a script that we've written for you. And I will tell you that most of the time you will be leaving voicemails, and they will be still having an impact, which I could tell you because Lily just did this after our mid-year appeal and after Hurricane Ian. And even the folks who got left voicemails, we have checks coming in from them still now today. So it is an incredibly impactful activity. We are only, as powerful as the humans on our team. So at this time of year, when we are spreading thankfulness and holiday cheer, we really would love to expand our team to include as many folks from SBP as might want to just tag in you can think of it as like tag in to take a shift and a list. It'll come with a script. And we will do a briefing call following this. Like if you email Lily to sign up, we'll put something on, we're going to put something on the calendar to be sure you have 30 minutes to understand exactly what's going to happen. Here's your list. Here's where the phone number is. Here's where you check that, yes, you made the call, or any notes that happened. And any questions you might have about the script, or what do I do if the donor asks this? We have FAQs. We've got it all ready. It's very turnkey. It's super easy to do. And as I said, I think you may be surprised that while you do a lot of voicemails, when you do these kind of thank you calls, when you do catch someone on the phone and they hear that they are talking to you, a person who isn't me, a fundraiser, and instead somebody who is doing this work, if you say, hey, I'm Mike Sullivan and I help ensure that we've got a strong AmeriCorps team, they are going to be like asking you all the questions, like, you tell me more about AmeriCorps. I don't know that much about the AmeriCorps program in SBP, and they're just going to be delighted to have the chance to connect with the real people, which you are, who are making all of this impact happen for our clients. So I promise, while A, it's easy, B, you're not asking for money, you're thanking people, C, it's not going to take a lot of time. So that is my plug. I'm going to do a little, Mike, give me a fist pump. Let's go. Let's go. Everyone, please sign up. All you got to do is email Lily and we'll send you everything that you need. You don't have to do it at a certain time. It will be within a certain number of days. You could do it on your own schedule, and we'll be sure to get you a training ahead of that. Did I do it? Did I cover it? Thank you. And thank you in advance for anyone who signs up.
Now I would say too, Elvis, if you are on the call, I know you volunteered to share. Elvis has done this before. He's volunteered to make thank you calls and did a wonderful job. So if Elvis is on the call, I know he was on a site today, but he offered to share a little bit about his experience.
There he is.
Hi, everybody. Can you see me?
Yes.
Hi, Elvis.
On location.
Hi, I'm live from Trabaja, Puerto Rico. We just had 35 volunteers from NCSY. I'm sorry if I'm sweaty, tired. The team is still working here. This house has been waiting for recovery since Maria, and they were impacted by Hurricane Fiona. So the team is here. But like, I would love to help. So yes. So when we work with volunteers, it's honestly the experience, it talks for itself, right? The project leaders, the volunteer coordinators, they really build a rapport with the volunteers where they feel like a family. And I think that that's something that people have always, when they see the volunteer survey, they always say, it truly feels like a family. And so when I started as a volunteer coordinator, I remember other VCs back then would tell me the hardest thing that you can do for volunteer is ask for money, man. It's so hard to ask for money. And I don't know how they were raised, but my mom always calls me like, you're shameless. Like, I want to do this and I'll just jump out of the plane. I wanted to study in Spain and Africa, and I went to Africa. And so I always used to say to them, you're not asking money for yourself. You're asking for money. Yes, you're not going to say that you're not asking for money. You're asking for money, but you're asking for the people that we help, for our clients. We're asking for our operations. We're asking to make sure that operations like Puerto Rico are able to help clients and help people in disaster impacted communities for much longer. One of the group leaders for NCSY just asked me, are you guys about done in Puerto Rico? And no. And I can't think of one moment where there's not going to be a necessity in Puerto Rico due to the continuous disasters. So when I think about calling volunteers and thanking them, and I'm just going to try to perch myself under this tree because it's starting to rain. We always have a first sit down with volunteers to think from them, and we always get to know them. It's about creating relationships with them. If you don't have a relationship with them, if your VC does not understand the capacity of the person or the organization that they're talking to, they won't be able to make the ask comfortably. So what we have done in Puerto Rico is making sure that you sit down with every volunteer that's coming to Puerto Rico. I try to meet every group that comes to Puerto Rico. Even if there's a volunteer coordinator in the house, I just want to go over there, thank them for their service, and make sure they put a face to the person that's been sending them emails. Okay? And so by the time they finish their service, we're there for the next set meeting. And by the time that they donate and we call them, we already have a relationship with them. And it's about being genuine, being grateful, and understanding that this is really, it's hard work, especially in the Puerto Rican heat. Oh my God. And so I would always recommend build a relationship. Don't be phony. Usually volunteers that really want to give their time back to their communities are amazing human beings, and people are truly hard-driven. They're really are driven to serve and to help. And usually the ask is not that hard, but it's about, don't think of it as money. Think of it as another client. Think of it as better resources. Think of it as better tools. Think of it as better other programs, other types of sustainability, not just rebuilding. Oh my God. This is SBP in real life, people.
Awesome, Elvis, thank you so much. And I also want to give you and your team a shout out because we recently received 2 substantial checks in the mail from groups who volunteered over the summer in Puerto Rico and did fundraising after they returned to support Fiona response. And that was because of the experience that they had. So I just want to really shout out Elvis and his team because they're truly living what we're talking about of being ambassadors. And it's not about asking for money. It's just about inspiring people to want to continue to support. So thank you so much. And thank you for calling in from location, and good luck with the volunteer group today.
Thank you, Lily. Have a nice day, everybody. Take care.
I just wanted to share like we just shared too with Elvis, just a few examples of how we have staff members who are already building a culture of philanthropy. So like the great example of the volunteer groups who were so inspired to continue supporting after their service. These are a few recent examples or just kind of evergreen examples. On the left, this is a volunteer group that came to Homa last spring, and I believe every single member of the volunteer group made a gift afterwards. And we had a couple who were new donors. They came with their teenage son, and the gift was so meaningful to them. They made a large donation in honor of the PLs specifically. It really meant a lot to them to see the PLs in action, and especially to have their teenage son with them. And you know, the PLs didn't ask for money. They just did great work. They worked hard. They showed great leadership. And they showed these volunteers that donations to SBP really do make an impact. In the middle here, this is an example of the corporate volunteer groups that we have. Farmers is an amazing example. They are a group that volunteers with us all the time for many years. And they support us from the corporate level as well. So it's a really mutually beneficial experience or relationships. I mean, because we get great volunteers out of it. Their team members get wonderful bonding experiences. We get financial support, and we just kind of have this really long-standing relationship. And I will credit Elizabeth with all of her wonderful work working with farmers. But also too, that is a great way to get individuals to be inspired to support as well. So having a great, meaningful, and transformative experience on a volunteer site can lead to so many other benefits in the future. And then another Puerto Rico example on the right here. This is a family who came to volunteer a couple of years ago in Puerto Rico and had such a meaningful experience that they committed to a multi-year six-figure donation specifically to support Puerto Rico operations, which is so critical, especially for rebuilding sites where disasters are a few years behind, right? It's hard to kind of get the attention sometimes. So to have people on the ground, meeting with families, meeting with the team, putting their hands on houses and kind of really living the mission is really powerful, and there's really nothing like it. So these are just some examples of how our team members build this culture of philanthropy, and you might not even know it. So thank you. And now I'm going to open it up. Does anyone else have an example that I did not include of a recent success? And no worries if not, this is kind of putting people on the spot. Or if you want to shout out someone else for a successful story.
I'll put a number on what the donors on that left photo gave, and I believe it was $10,000 in honor of those two PLs. And that
Yes.
was from a donor who'd never made a gift to SBP before, which is incredibly significant first-time gift. Sometimes people start at 100 when they have that capacity, maybe 1,000 if they have that capacity, because they want to test out the organization. But I think it really speaks to the experience that the donors had with those two PLs, that it was so clear the impact that they saw in front of them, that they came in with a gift of that size. So I wanted to highlight that it was quite significant. And that was just people, like Lily said, already living this culture of philanthropy by doing such a fantastic job leading the volunteer experience and that client impact. I'm also just taking time to let people think about if they have questions.
Does anyone have any questions? Oh, sorry.
Oh, no questions. I was just going to note that it's a really cool opportunity and relationship for volunteer and development, and even AmeriCorps to work really closely, especially when we have these different volunteer groups come in, because like what we've been able to do this year is really create an experience together that essentially nets a long-term relationship or commitment with either the companies or the donors. So it's been neat to work through those situations together, and it's really I think, important from an AmeriCorps standpoint to know the importance and value that the PLs, the VCs play in what that long-term relationship is going to look like, because it's that relationship that's built during their experience that sticks with them long-term.
That's exactly right, April. This is April Meliter, National Director of Volunteer Programs, an incredible partner for us, particularly in individual giving, because we know we have someone who knows all of the VCs and coordinators. And when we want to be sure that we're following very closely the volunteer experience of a particular supporter, for example, or a prospective donor, April and the VCs and the whole volunteer department are just incredible. So thank you for that. I was going to add one more detail for you on that, April, and give an example of this PL relationship. I just had a meeting with that donor that Lily mentioned, who made a 5-year, 6-figure commitment to Puerto Rico. And what delighted him most in our meeting, which was a meeting to, if we refer back to that slide about stewardship, the meeting was to show him the impact he'd had over the last year. But what he really loved to see, what got the reaction out of him, and the first time he spoke to ask a question, was when we showed him a picture of the PL he'd worked with when he volunteered. And we said, do you remember this gentleman? And he said, yes, of course I do. And that person actually had been promoted to permanent SBP staff. And it made him so happy to hear that. And he never forgot. Like, I've heard so many donors, years later, they're like, oh no, I know the name of my person on my site. Are they here? Like, what are they doing? What's up? How are they doing? Just as much as they connect with that client. So just again, highlighting you all are truly our ambassadors, both for the client and for the people who are able to sustain our mission with their gifts. Thank you. Thanks. Come on, someone make up a question.
I'm also going to kind of put out there, if anyone's interested too. I feel like development and fundraising is kind of a field that can be a little mysterious, or I feel like we've all kind of taken twists and turns to get here. So if anyone's interested in talking about it as a career path, I'm sure anyone on the development team would love to talk with you. You know, I have a background in, I was an English and sociology major. So what do you do with that for a job, right? And I really enjoyed writing. I really enjoyed relationships. And it's kind of a beautiful place where you can put all that together to kind of drive human impact. There's a lot of other ways, a lot of other skills you can bring to the table. So if anyone is interested in talking about pursuing it as a career at SBP or elsewhere, we would love to talk with you about it.
Look at that recruiting arm right there. Love to see it. Sorry, Mike, were you going to say something?
Yeah, just a quick question. I was just curious on like perhaps like the breakdown between corporate giving, individual giving, and then what we access through grants. And maybe that was covered while I was like gorging on my salad. But was just curious if there what that breakdown looks like.
Well, I might put Elizabeth on the spot. She's on the call, and yes, it's like you should turn your camera off.
No, so great question. So there are revenue streams on the development side, and then operationally, there's revenue streams that we're not responsible for on the development side, and that would be government grants, which is the AmeriCorps grant and any sort of like long-term CDBG DR programs that we get into. So the government revenue accounts for about 50% of SBP's revenue each year. And so the other 50% is made up of individual, corporate, and foundation being the majority revenue stream, and then corporate, and then individual giving. But that, you know, there's all sorts of we have foundation partners who, one in particular who committed $10 million over 3 years, which is hugely important, but very restricted. And then you have corporate grants that support both Blue Sky Day, but then we also have a lot of reactive post-disaster grants, and again, restricted. And so I think the message that I hear loud and clear from this conversation is individual giving is so essential because it comes with less restrictions, and it really allows, it's the money that allows SBP to think bigger and create new programs and fill in gaps. And so the percentage of the pie isn't really reflective of kind of the flexibility of the funding. And then I'll just say this, at the beginning, we talked about the expansion of the team. What's really exciting is by building on our team, we also get to build the size of the pie, if you will. And so perhaps on the development side, we start carving into or building out our revenue in a way that we're 60% of the revenue, 70% of the revenue. And it doesn't mean we're taking anything away from the government grants. It's just that we're building our capacity to raise more.
Yeah. And another, just to add to what Elizabeth's saying there too, when I think about individual donors, and this is something, if you ever got into the conversation pretty deep into it, you could share, to her point about, and particularly at SBP, there's a lot of room for growth for individual giving to become a bigger piece of the pie. But even with that, because of the flexibility of that type of donation, the unrestricted, that where most needed, that's the money that comes in the door ahead of a disaster and starts the operation. So what that means is that it's being leveraged like one to 10, probably. Keith, I don't know if anyone's from finance on this call. I'd love to know the exact average if we really looked at it, but I can tell you that when we look at the long-term recovery and we think about what was invested in unrestricted at the top of the recovery, and we look at the corporate and foundation that was added on, and then the CDBGR government money at the longer tail, think of all of that funding. If we didn't have this unrestricted core starting point, like that's the power of the individual donor that I share with them to say, like, your investment is leveraged big time, 1 to 10, 1 to 9, whatever the number is at SBP, it's somewhere around there. So that's another fun fact about the power of the individual at SBP. So thanks for that question.
What's been the largest individual donation? Is that a weird question to ask? Is that
No.
like don't ask people's age kind of thing?
No, we like to talk about money. No. Well, I don't know, Elizabeth, I think of the JJ Watt as the person, not just, a lot of people have foundations, Mike, and they put their wealth into like a family foundation. So to me, JJ Watt was like the biggest
that was I don't disagree. That was a really big moment, but in terms of someone's own wealth versus like crowdsourced wealth, I think it was the gentleman you highlighted in Puerto Rico, Rachel.
Yeah. So, and that's 500. That was the JJ Watt was in the millions, millions and millions and millions, but I didn't realize some of it was crowdsourced, Elizabeth. That was before my time. Thank you. And he made a $500,000 commitment that was multi-year. And that was the most recent and biggest from an individual. And we have like a handful, Mike, who give at the 100,000 level annually, and a very solid number, I think 50 or 60, who give 10,000 or more. You can always ask us about numbers, Mike. It's totally fine. It's the opposite of don't talk about money on the development side. We're happy to talk about money all day long.
It's not really a question, but I just want to really like shout out the development team, because I'm always just sending an email message to Rachel, Lily. You probably hate me right now, but I'm so happy with really anytime there's an issue, anytime I need information, anytime I need to confirm a donation, you guys are there. So thank you so much. I appreciate y'all so much.
Thank you, Elvis. Absolutely not. No, in fact, it is delightful to us to hear from you, and we would love to hear from more of your colleagues. Like it's like, I'm excited when I get an Elvis email for sure, because I know it means you've connected with someone and you're asking about like, how do we designate their donation, or how can we make this experience better? Or what's going on with this person? I love it. So thank you. Thanks for the shout out. Should we
And
give-
I think one of the most fun things is when we do get a gift in honor of someone or in honor of a operating site, and then we can share the news with them. So I love doing that. So that's really, really fun. And then think of creative ways that we can thank the donor. Like for the gentleman we talked about for Puerto Rico, the team there put together like a compilation thank you video that the donor just like loved. So any creative ideas you have like that, we are always open to. So yes, absolutely. We love being in touch with operating sites.
All right, before I give everyone back their time, I also would like to do one more plug for Thankathon and add that it will not only be fun, but we'll do some fun incentives. There'll be prizes if it's okay with everyone. And even if it's not okay, I really like a competition. So there may be an award for who made the most calls or who has the best story, a little bit of superlatives. I promise A, fun, and B, easy. So thank you for the two. I saw 2 people in the chat already signed up. It's hot, people. People are signing up. People want to get into it. Get into it. It's literally just thank you calls. And seriously, it has an effect. Like I'm talking thousands of dollars just because you made like 20 calls. That's a real thing that will happen. So please, please and thank you. But I think have we done it? Have we,
We've run the clock, folks. So
it's 10 minutes for people. Look at us.
yeah, you know, we're grateful to you. And so we're going to turn that gratitude into the best gift of all, which is time. So take that back
Yes.
and run with it. Appreciate you all. Thanks everybody for the presentation. Great job, team. And we'll see you wherever we're going to see you on the next meetings, on email, etc. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.
Yeah.